Today is May 22nd, a big day for theme park history, but with only so much time left, I have to go celebrate one of the last few times I'll get to see Muppet Vision 3D. Is what I would have said if I wasn't a freak and ended up going over twice after that. Now Muppet Vision is unfortunately dead. I wanted to make this video a lot sooner before it even closed, but I just found so many more things I wanted to say about Muppet Vision. I wanted to dig deeper into my thoughts about why Muppet Vision was so important and so good, because not only was it one of the best theme park attractions, but also more importantly, a project that allowed people to see and interact with a Jim Henson production, which are famously known not just for being wacky, joke-filled escapades, but the type of movies, TV shows, and experiences that carry so much heart and humanity through the felt that you see on the screen. So how is one supposed to encapsulate all those thoughts and emotions? Well, let's see what I actually tried to say when I was on the scene on May 22nd. Cue the montage! Wild how Epic Universe Grand Opening Day is happening right over there, and then we're just gonna go to Muppet Vision and then cry about it, because Muppet Vision is closing, and that takes precedence.
Listen, I just thought we would have more time before a complete Muppets implosion. You know, Disney just doesn't do a lot of stuff with the Muppets anymore, but hey, they're starting with the 70th anniversary. Maybe, hopefully they get more Muppet stuff. I feel like a lot of zany charm with Muppets that you don't get everywhere else with a lot of theme park attractions or just in theme parks in general. When I'm looking through all the Easter eggs, it feels like they all come from a place of history with people, not just like, you know, Easter eggs in a movie. So I think that's really something that's going to be lost with Muppets not being around anymore. Especially because Disney can throw in Muppet charm anywhere they want to. Like on Sunset Boulevard, they could just add like Gonzo's Royal Flush as a bathroom, and they can add like a Pizza Rizzo Express with signs painted towards like Rock and Roller Coaster if they wanted to, and they can redecorate it because Muppets fit in with old Hollywood. Old Hollywood fits in with Muppets because of how the Muppets originated, as it was like a sort of American journey through their own talents and coming together as a group of friends. And you could do so much with the Muppets, and I just don't know why Disney doesn't do anything with the Muppets, so whatever. So as you could see, I wasn't clearly describing some of my ideas in the clearest way possible, so maybe on-the-scene reporting just isn't my type of thing. But now that I have more time to actually reflect on what I wanted to say here, I wanted to talk about the distinct features of a Muppet Land and Muppets as a whole, and how they could make for a distinct theme park land or attraction compared to modern theme park attractions that we see nowadays. I think there's been a disconnect in how people can assume theme parks could be made, due to the fact that there's been a shift in direction that theme parks have taken themselves in since the Muppet Land was originally conceptualized and created. The way that the Muppets operate blend the use of Muppets within the theme park to a completely different kind of theming, set of rules, and circumstances that you can find and make for a theme park. So when I say that Muppet Vision felt like a more human attraction or experience, I was attempting to say that since the Muppets exist in the real world, as they're portrayed in ways indicative of their own autonomy within the entertainment industry and beyond, we get to see them in real world events that don't exist just to be filmed for the screen. Like when just a couple weeks ago, Kermit hosted a graduation commencement. They address us, the people who see the media they're in, directly on social media, on talk shows, and in person. Meaning, the Muppets can pull from so many real-life instances to make a world that they live in, so when you walk through a Muppet attraction, the jokes that they could tell and the things that they could pull from are something that we can all recognize from pop culture, because we share the same culture. In fact, the Muppets have so often been portrayed as distinctly American. What makes the Muppets so important is their character. Without the special traits of each of the Muppets and their presence and personality, the Muppets have nothing to call their own. Without their ridiculous and memorable personalities, what even are the Muppets? This is why them being American is such a great choice for their culture. They're loud, boisterous, and let you know who they are, just like Americans do. In fact, Disney knows this to be true because Muppet Courtyard was originally built as an extension of the Streets of America in Disney's MGM Studios, which is now Hollywood Studios.
And you don't have to just look back in the past to realize this, because even in more recent times, Disney has been putting the Muppets in American sections of the current theme parks. Around the time of the last theatrical Muppets feature, which was Muppets Most Wanted, Disney started a live performance series called The Greatest Moments in History, but just the American parts, over in Liberty Square in Magic Kingdom, where they would reenact and tell the audience about significant moments in American history in the most chaotic and Muppety way possible, until it closed 4 years after its debut in 2020. But even more recently, about 5 years ago, Disney rethemed the Token quick service restaurant and the America Pavilion over at Epcot to be the Regal Eagle Smokehouse, hosting the Salute to All cook-offs, but mostly barbecue, which in and of itself is also a reference to Muppet Vision 3D.
And we've also got a big musical finale from Sam Eagle. Sam, what's it about?
It's called A Salute to All Nations, but mostly America.
Great.
Speaking of, let's return back to the subject of the conversation, how immersive the Muppet Vision experience can be, all starting with the queue and the pre-show room. So often, I think people head straight to the backstage room filled with all the props and set pieces and even luggage that belongs to the Muppets, that they don't allow themselves to recognize the brick and mortar theater that you just stepped into, which is the first thing that brings that warmth and humidity to your time at the theater. The brick ties all the antics that go on with the Muppets to a visually handcrafted space, similar to what the original Muppet Show does as well. It binds the absurd with the mundane, allowing us, the audience of the show, to ground ourselves in the theater. Even these glass roofs that you pass through in the queue allow for a consistent visual motif when you look at the locations in the film as well. It tells us that, hey, we're all under the same roof here. Walking into the pre-show room, there are so many objects and things littered around the room that pay homage to events in the Muppets past. And as we discussed earlier, the Muppets past are our past, that being American pop culture, beginning around the 1970s and then extending into our modern day. Because of this, all the things in the pre-show room extend beyond just what a Muppet superfan would recognize, because the Muppets can act as a catalyst for parody. You don't need context for why Miss Piggy is on the poster for a sci-fi film. The idea of a pig being in space is innately absurd. Pair that with the fact that the one-liner focuses on the pig not being able to find their shoes. I mean, you can't help but chuckle at that. One of my favorite pieces from this room is this Bruce Springsteen-inspired Kermit cutout, which was originally from an issue of the Muppets magazine. But the joke of Bruce Springsteen Kermit was then extended in an episode of The Muppets Tonight, in a sketch where Kermit has a midlife crisis and performs Dancing in the Dark on stage, with some other antics involved trying to get Miss Piggy on the stage. So seeing the cardboard cutout of Kermit in jeans striking a pose not only gets to serve as a funny bit for someone who doesn't know the story, it also serves as a memento of a sketch from years before that the Muppet Gang might just bring along to make fun of Kermit for doing in the past. The room is also filled with a ton of props that are to be used in Muppet productions, because after all, you are in Hollywood Studios, the park that was originally focused on the production and making of movies and TV shows. You can see how they composed the Pigs in Space intro, because the prop of the actual ship that flies at the beginning of each segment is hanging from the ceiling backstage. Located on the catwalks above you, there are soldiers that are to be used in the Salute to All Nations but mostly America, in addition to all the Muppets luggage being strewn around the room for you to look at in detail. There are so many elements on display that are personable, and they include all these tiny elements from our shared culture that's so prevalent within the minds of the people who walk through here, for something that could just be a wacky parody to point out, but when each element is taken as a whole, it all just feels so full. It feels like a room filled with the sentiment of all the days gone by. Even in the pre-show video, the idea that the Muppets break the boundaries of the TV and are able to traverse 3 separate screens at a time makes for an unpredictable time.
Oh, you dropped your pot. Oh! Pick it up.
What is? What?
Yes.
Really? Here?
Yes, indeed. Right over there.
Well, of course, certainly. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an unexpected surprise. I have the great honor of introducing the one, the only, Mr. Mickey Mouse.
Oh, no. Hello, hi there. Welcome to my park. How you doing? Hello.
Whoa.
Having Sam Eagle being tricked that they have a special guest arriving to the show, only for it to be Rizzo the Rat dressed up as Mickey Mouse, feels like the height of the hilarity, combining the joke that Rizzo and Mickey are both rodents, with the fact that even the Muppets have a high regard for Mickey, just as the guests who enter the show do. And that helps foster a connection with the Muppets, building them up as these sort of underdogs inside of Disney World, even if you have no idea who they are. That is how the Muppets can uniquely reach broad appeal, through the capability they have to reach into the audience and pull out some of these shared emotions just through Muppetry shenanigans, which is completely distinct to them. Even though they are Muppets, all these characters are multifaceted, just like every person who walks under this theater's very doors. But with that, the antics all crescendo, as the Muppets finish prepping for the show you're about to see, and you get to step into the very theater itself, which creates this contrast with the velvet floors and ornate busts of the Muppet characters that sell the super professional nature of these high-class entertainers. To help understand the film in a more digestible manner, I've split up the theater into 5 distinct sections. Section A, the mezzanine. The mezzanine box seats are the first thing that come alive during your time at the theater. They make it feel like you're attending a full production that the Muppets have put on, if Statler and Waldorf have also come to heckle the whole bunch. The duo make the theater feel more alive, as they can interact with the Muppets across to the other mezzanine, and through the screen. The fact that you could just look up to see their reactions at any point for the jokes that the Muppets tell, just convince you that the Muppets are more than just the characters that you watch on the screen. They're in the theater with you. The characters in the mezzanine feel all the effects that you do because you're both watching the same show, and respond accordingly with quips to match your own feelings. Like when Fozzie sprays water to the crowd.
Well, my new 3DX gonna shower you all with humor!
Trying to drown us! What kind of act is that? Mercy!
To any non-Muppet fans, they can communicate the absurd with this banter that the gang are already well accustomed with, and likely even ignore while they perform, like Miss Piggy probably has to do every time she has to do her opening number.
Doesn't it look beautiful? Yeah, too bad they're gonna spoil it with a pig.
Section B, the screen. Now this is what you look at during most of the duration of the film, but the screen becomes alive because the 3D effect is used to extend the characters into the theater that you're in and outwards towards the theater that you just walked through to get there. As mentioned before, right before you walk into the pre-show room, you see the glass roofs in the building that tie all the rooms together. And because of this, you can imagine that, hey, Muppet Labs is getting sucked up over there, because I just passed through the hallway where I saw all the Muppet Labs doors, and you never know what's going to be behind any single one of them. What makes the show engaging as the 3D film is the fact that it plays on your expectations of what can be done in 3D, because even at the time Jim Henson considered there's only so many things that you could do with 3D film, so they tried to pack in as many effects and gags that they can use within the story of Muppet Vision 3D as possible. Because of that, it's almost like the Muppets have their own commentary about what you can do with 3D, and it becomes almost a parody of a 3D film itself.
Hey, Kermit, watch this! What?
Ozzy, that's terrible.
You're right. Needs more sugar.
Since Muppet Vision 3D has been created, I don't think I've seen another 3D show that has created new technology or created a new experience than what can be found here in the Muppet Theater. To be specific, I think a lot of other 3D shows try to immerse you with what you're seeing on screen, while in Muppet Vision 3D, the screen is just one of the multiple things that immerse you in the show that you're watching. If you're watching a show like Mickey's Filler Magic, you're watching the screen mainly for most of your duration of the show. While watching Muppet Vision 3D, a majority of your time is spent looking at the screen, but a non-indistinguishable amount is spent looking at Statler and Waldorf, at Bean Bunny, at Sweetums, at the Swedish Chef, at the orchestra in front of you. It's a tool, not the focus of the entire duration of the show. The characters are interacting with you in the audience specifically.
Oh boy, I'm bouncing on people's heads.
Or with each other across the screen, which makes it feel a lot more alive. Case in point, Section C, the orchestra. Now, all the music that you hear in Muppet Vision 3D is diegetic, which means it's being played in front of you for you to hear and not just as a background track for the film. And right below the film, you could see the at least 12-piece orchestra of penguins, which are referred to routinely throughout the show. They're another part that sells the full production that's happening here, before the hijinks ensue, that is. At that point, you're along for the ride with these characters, like Waldo, the spirit of 3D, who singles you out specifically, and makes a joke referring to that everyone can see Waldo through the vantage point of 3D in the same way.
You know, all these other people think I'm talking to them, but I'm really just talking to you.
I think one of the things that you don't typically expect when going to see the show for the first time is when Waldo, the spirit of 3D, throws a firework down at the penguins. And because of that, the penguins try to retaliate against Waldo, but end up getting Swedish Chef caught in the mix, so all this chaos is happening around you and in the room, so you have to crane your neck and look around the theater to actually see these characters fight in the end right in front of your face. You're just caught in the crosshairs of something that was much bigger than it was intended to be. And now that I mentioned it a couple times, it's time to move on to section D, the projector. So the person who's manning the projection of the Muppet Vision 3D film itself is the Swedish Chef, as he does in the first Muppets movie.
Here in this modern high-tech facility, we have perfected Muppet Vision 3D, a new film process which we're about to demonstrate. Now, working the projector is an old friend of ours, the Swedish Chef. Chef, everything okay? Exactly.
And he comes out at various points to either gesture towards the screen or retaliate against the penguins, ensuring an all-out shootout in the theater that you're in. Having a character that sits behind you for the duration of the show just adds another point to how immersive the show is. There's characters everywhere you see, making it all feel so alive and jubilant. Which leads us to section E, the audience, where another Muppet character physically comes out on the stage in front of you, and that's Sweetums. Initially, he comes out to try to find Bean, who's located in the other mezzanine box seat, but he also comes out multiple times to try to de-escalate the situation with the penguins, Swedish Chef, and Waldo. So over the course of the show, 16 animatronic characters are with you in the theater at the same time, everywhere you look at various points during your time there. Muppet Vision is not a passive film. It's an experience that asks you to engage with it during the duration of your time there. Even directly when Sweetums needs help finding Bean Bunny, who ran away into the very theater that you're sitting in from the film. Which also happens to be a funny gag that takes him from the set inside of the film to the blank space after Muppet Vision Labs got sucked up. I hope I was able to do a little bit of justice to how chaotic this theater is when you're experiencing it for the first time, because when you see it for the first time, there's no other thing like it around in the theme parks. Another 3D show might have, a couple figures or animatronics lean down at certain points, but they're not characters that exist in the theater with you. They're not meant to interact with each other across from you. They're typically taken out for an effect, not for the duration of an entire show. I think that's what makes Muppet Vision so much more engaging than a ride or a show. The fact that many of these animatronics and characters and figures persist throughout the duration of the show and interact with each other just helps immerse you in that environment. It allows you to actually sink in the feeling that these characters existed here before you got there. The thing is, all these smaller and more personable bits of charm that add up to form a complete lived-in experience doesn't always make for a profitable theme park attraction or profitable theme park land to get people in the gate. Because maybe the Muppets just aren't as culturally relevant to people anymore. Or are they? Just because the Muppets earn an IP that make $1 billion in the box office every 5 years, does that mean people no longer find them entertaining? Find no connection with these characters? I feel like every time I go outside, I see at least one person wearing Muppet merch. So there are Muppet fans out there. Maybe it's just that Disney won't give them time to experiment with what works best for the Muppets in the modern day, because it's not like late night shows are the popular thing to do anymore. Just talking about me, I really like the new show, The Muppets Mayhem. I think it's a good use of the Muppets and it expands the history and lore of the characters. But that's coming from me, a Muppets fan, someone who looks at Disney Plus and social media to see what's happening with the Muppets, not someone whose last theater experience, or just experience in general with the Muppets, was Muppets Most Wanted, about 10 years ago. But just because the Muppets aren't around as much in pop culture anymore, it doesn't mean people still don't recognize Muppets in general, because Sesame Street is still as popular as it ever was. And people still recognize Kermit and Miss Piggy and Fozzie. But with that aside, it just lends to the fact that when you walk through a Muppet attraction and you see all these references to our culture in the real world, it helps solidify that you happen to be at the theater that the Muppets are playing at. Kind of like going to a concert in your hometown, which is something that they've done before, like in the relatively recent anniversary shows, The Muppets Take the Hollywood Bowl and The Muppets Take the O2. Discussing this distinction I think is important because in a lot of single IP lands now that are not the Muppets and weren't built before the 90s, it becomes apparent that you have to take the role of somebody. Like if you're riding Rise of Resistance, you become a Resistance member, not a person who's walking into this part of a theme park. I feel like this is especially relevant today with the new Epic Universe theme park opening up, and while the theming is incredible, it's one of the best I've seen in the world as someone who's gotten to go, there's a specific type of charm and humanity that's not found anywhere else but the Muppet Theater in Muppet Vision 3D. When you go to a Muppet attraction, you're not going to a different world because the Muppets are just an extension of our existing world, which is not really found elsewhere because Muppet Vision 3D is just another act that the Muppets are putting together, like a movie that they're putting on, or like a TV show that they're hosting every night. In this case, we just happen to step into the experience from the backstage instead of through the front door, like maybe a portal at Epic Universe. That backdoor entrance is the key, because it allows them to be much more personable and allow you to connect to them way more than any other character that I've found around theme parks. Except this guy. This guy's pretty cool. I think because of that, Muppet Vision is or was one of the very few attractions that can always get a laugh out of me, no matter what. It was all just rooted in this genuine nature that allowed it to be rooted in such a place of warmth and humanity. And every single time I went there, I would notice another small detail or another thing in the background that could just be a cluttered element, but it was really something that like all fed into each other into this huge machine. Like, I didn't even realize till the last time I saw the show that when you go into the Muppet Labs portion, the Muppet Vision 3D glasses go into the machine to make Waldo. The attraction really acts as an extension of the Muppets themselves, not an attraction that they're supposed to be at. So because of that, it just always felt so human.
Got Gonzo's Royal Flush hype system here. Can't get that anywhere else.
Thanks for watching. I did not intend for this to be a big old video. I was intending for this to come out before Muppet Vision even closed, but I went for pictures and then I was like, oh, I should make a video to encapsulate my thoughts of this at the time because Muppet Vision is just very special, and I've always felt that way, and it's been really nice to see other people having a similar sentiment about it, because there's almost nothing like it in the theme parks. And it's not just people who are theme park fans that are saying this, it's Muppet fans and vice versa. Yeah, the Muppets are so special to a lot of people, so I just wanted to encapsulate a memory for this right here. I don't really plan on making other videos about theme parks or attractions, except maybe Dinosaur, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it maybe later on, because I really like Dinosaur and I think Dinoland is pretty underrated, but that's a story for another day. Man, I talked about America a lot in this video. I should probably not do that again, but I like Dinosaur. I'll limit the America discussion.